Alright guys, I wanted to show you what we're going to be working on for an introduction into Photoshop, and this is a section of Pete Mondrian's Broadway Boogie Woogie. I included in Microsoft Teams the whole entire image of the painting. It's considered an abstract geometric piece of artwork. So we're going to recreate this in Photoshop just so we can learn some of the tools, okay? So when you go to Photoshop and you basically went to File and you hit Open, okay, you're going to go ahead and actually look for the file. Now I'm on a Mac, it's similar on a PC, and I'll let you know what the key commands are for both Mac and PC. Alright, and I am going to pause. Alright, to go over some of the workspace here, when you open it here, this is the actual document that you're working from. You have on this hand right here, this is your tools panel right here. And then up at the top here, you're going to see whatever tool you're selected on, some of the property settings will be up here. I'm currently in a workspace called Essentials. Okay, so if you left click over here in this rectangle, you will be able to choose what kind of workspace you have, and then whenever you change that, that's going to change whatever panels are showing. So I'm fine with Essentials right now. We especially want to talk about this layers panel right here. You use that a lot when you're working in Photoshop. This is like separate pieces of paper or like acetate, and it's like they're separate from each other, so that if you draw on one layer, it's going to be movable, and it's not going to take the other layers with it unless you want it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this painting. You can either left click, hold, and drag it down to this little new layer icon and it will duplicate it, and I'm going to hit Command Z or Control Z, and then I'm going to hit Command J or Control J if you're on a PC, and then it will also duplicate the layer, okay? I am going to left click right here because on the eyeball, because I want to hide that layer, and then I'm going to left click to create a new layer. I'm going to drag it. I'm going to leave it where it is, but I am going to rename these, and I'm going to left click on the name. You can always recreate it, call it painting, and then this is going to be my work. Okay, and then I'm going to drop the opacity down on this. So this separate piece of paper right here, or layer, I can left click, I can hold and drag, and I can change how much of this painting I see right here. Okay, so I am going to select, depending on what layer you left click on, that's going to determine what layer you're actually working on. Okay, alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to left click, drag this down below, because I'm using this as a guide here. And the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to change and add a white background color. So down here you have a foreground color, you have a background color. So my foreground color is currently set to gray. If I tap the letter X on my keyboard, I can go to the white. This paint bucket tool will let me fill the entire space, okay, with the white. So if I left click, it's now white, and you kind of lose that transparency now from the layer. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start recreating some of the pieces that are on the painting here, this geometric shape. So I am going to create another layer, and I'm going to split this up by color because I just think it'll be easier, so I'm going to call it yellow. So I'm going to start with all the yellow parts first. Okay, so there's multiple ways in order to create these geometric shapes. I'm going to use the rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to left click and drag, and I'm holding, and when I release it, I can go over here or over here under my color, and I could boost. I can left click and hold and boost this to be 100% yellow. So when it's 100% yellow, I can go G, and that's the keyboard shortcut to get my paint bucket tool. And then I'm going to make sure I'm on the yellow layer, and then I'm going to left click, and I've just filled it in with yellow. I'm going to hit Control D or Command D. Okay, so if I want to see what this looks like so far, all I have to do is hide this layer called painting. So I'm going to left click on the eyeball, and so now I have my first yellow piece right there. Okay, so I'm going to break it up even further. I'm going to add another layer, and I'm going to call it blue. Okay, so now I'm going to go back in, and I have some of these blue shapes right here that I can add. Now if I want to, another way to create this shape, besides using the rectangular marquee tool, I can use this rectangle tool. So if I click here, there's a fill color and there is a stroke. Okay, so if I double left click on here, this panel pops up, and then I can go ahead and choose my blue, and I'm going to use the blue that is here, or I could choose one of the other blues. That's fine. Actually, I think this blue is a little bit closer. Yeah, that looks a little bit closer. Currently, stroke, I'm going to set it to none, which is this line, red line going through it. That means that there is no fill color whatsoever. I'm currently on 3 points, which is 3 pixels, I mean. And that has to do with the stroke, but I don't need that. So now I'm going to left click, hold, and drag. It should fill with a blue color. Okay, so now you can see there's the blue color there. If I want to change the fill color, I can go back up here, left click once, and I can choose one of these other fill colors. And you can see it kind of changed right there. It got a little bit lighter, but I'm going to go back to the blue that I liked. Okay. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my move tool. The move tool right here, if I left click on this, I can literally move this wherever I want to. So if you have to adjust things, you can move it that way, or you can use your up and down arrow keys. So I can, if I just need to move it ever so slightly to adjust the placement of it. And you're going to notice that there's kind of sometimes, when you're lining things, you see these pink outlines or pink vertical or horizontal lines. Okay, those are smart guides, and they just kind of help you align other shapes that you've drawn, place them in center, or just make sure they're lined up properly with each other. I'm just gonna left click and let go of the left click button. Next thing I'm gonna do is I am going to do red. So it's using primary color, so create a new layer, left click, double left click on the layer's name, we're gonna call it red. So now I'm gonna go back in, and like I said, you could choose to use the rectangle tool. You can go left click here. You can choose the color red, and these are your swatches. It's basically what I see over here. I just see them right here in this panel, and then I'm going to left click and pick the red. If I don't want to do it that way, and then click and draw, so I could do that, left click and draw. You can see the smart guides are popping up, showing me that I'm lined up. Okay, and then I can go ahead and I could try my rectangular marquee tool to figure out, okay, which one am I more comfortable using? Which one's faster for me? So I can left click drag, and then I'm going to use my paint bucket tool, hit the letter G on my keyboard. If you need to rotate, if you see like, oh, I don't have the paint bucket tool, the tool doesn't look correct. If I right click on this, you might be set to gradient. So if I want to keyboard shortcut, rotate through it, I hold the shift, letter G, and you're going to see that the tool changes. So I want the one that looks just only paint bucket, gradient tool, paint bucket tool. And then I can go in, and it's not the paint bucket. A lot of students will get confused. They're like, oh, is it this paint bucket? No, it's actually the little triangle. And I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hit the command plus or control plus, and you can zoom in. I use the space bar and I hold, and I'll drag it to the space. I'm a little bit off. Okay, I can hit Command D or Control D on a PC, and I'm just gonna try it again. I'm gonna redraw, and that's a little bit better. Yeah, I like that a little bit better. And I'm on the red layer. Tap the letter G. Okay, so what's happening is you'll see on this layer, oh, it's not working. It's because I've already added a vector shape. Okay, so I'm gonna have to add a new layer to this. Double left click. Red 2, okay? And now I can go ahead and wherever the black little triangle is, I can left click in there, and it should fill with the color. Now, I no longer have red. I actually filled it with yellow. So I'm going to go over here to my swatches, and I'm going to left click on that. You can see in the foreground color it is switched, and now I'm going to go ahead and left click once within that area, and then it should fill with red. I'm going to hit Control or Command D. And then I'm going to hit Command 0 or Control 0 on a PC. And then I kind of want to preview to see what does it look like so far. So if I uncheck the little eyeball, I can see, oh, well, I'm starting to get kind of close, and I'm kind of understanding how do the layers work, how does it, affect it when I draw a shape, okay? And by the way, I'm in Adobe Photoshop CC 2019. You guys are on 2018, so some of the tools are going to look slightly different, and we're probably going to have to reset your tools as well, but that'll get you going. Now, when you save your file, you're going to have to save and go to File, Save As, and then I'm going to go to my desktop. I would want to create a new folder, and I'm going to go ahead and call it Recreate Art. And I'm going to hit Create, and then I'm going to go ahead and I want to leave it as the .psd file. That is the native Photoshop file. Only Photoshop can really read that document. So you can see under Format, Photoshop. You have other choices. Either I'll have you save it as a Photoshop JPEG file. Okay, I want to leave the layers on. Okay, so the native file lets you keep all of those lovely layers so things are separate. You can go back and edit them later on, and then I'm going to hit Save. And then if I minimize this, and then if I go to my desktop, I should have a Recreate Art. Double left click, here's the PSD file. I'm going to put my example JPEGs in there. And then if I double left click on this, and this works on both PC and Mac, because it's the native file, when you double left click, it should automatically open it. So if I close that, double left click, and there it is. And then I can continue working. Just always remember, before you close your PSD file, you always want to go to File, and I could save as, or I can hit Command or Control S on the keyboard and save it. Because if you don't do that and you just close it, all of your changes will be gone. Because a lot of times students would save it as a JPEG and they're like, oh, I'm ready to submit. And then I make some kind of comment and say, oh, well, you need to go back and adjust this. And they're like, I didn't save my work. I'm like behind and I got to redo this. So just remember, before you close your Photoshop file, and here you can see up at the top, this is my Photoshop file, always make sure you save. So I'm going to close that, and that's how you begin working on your Broadway Boogie Woogies.